and Norse paganism from the Troth, education and service for inclusive heathenry.
Hello, I'm Piper Perry. It's September 6, 2024, and this is All Things Considered, brought to you by The Troth. All Things Considered is our news program where we cover stories from around the world that pertain to heathens and heathenry and let you know where we are and what we're doing. We're in the middle of pagan pride season, and we here at The Troth take those opportunities to get to know you in person. Our Associate President, Ben Kowalski-Grenick, will be at Twin Cities Pagan Pride tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time. Sarah Odinson, one of our esoteric practitioner education developers, will be at Ann Arbor Pagan Pride September 14th, where he and his family will be doing the main ritual. And I will be at Denver Pagan Pride on the same day, September 14th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Time at Civic Center Park. For other events and appearances, please check out our website. Our first story tonight is about our co-religionists in Iceland. After a year of fundraising, the Asatru community is building a new Hof and social center in East Iceland. Covered in the Iceland Review, Asatru has been a recognized religion in Iceland since 1973, giving it the legal right to perform weddings and other ceremonies. Asatru is the largest non-Christian faith in Iceland, and congratulations to our co-religionists, and may you build many more. Our second story tonight is about the rise of the far right in Germany. When the vote closed on Sunday, September 1st, according to Reuters News, the far right Alternative for Germany, or AfD, party became the strongest party in the eastern state of Thuringia for the first time since 1945. The AfD have been successful in drawing in people who feel like the government is neglecting the issues they care about. Using economic grievance and opposition to immigration, the AfD has attracted many, despite German authorities giving the party a suspected extremist status. Many of the same lies AfD are told about immigrants around the world. With climate change and genocide driving people out of their homes, the shift in demographics frightens some people. Helping immigrants settle where they can be safe is an opportunity for us as heathens to practice hospitality and community building. Our third story tonight is about current Viking portrayals in popular culture. Movie Maker magazine on September 2nd has an article that talks a bit about romanticizing the past. Romanticizing the past is a huge part of the reason people are attracted to Vikings in video games, movies, and television. And how romanticizing the past, especially a white past, has aided colonialism is covered in the book Norse America, The Story of a Founding Myth by Gordon Campbell. It's by Harvard Press, and it's a great read. We now turn to a story that we at the Troth have been following closely. We turn to Lauren Crow, president of the Troth, and the Odinism expert used by some media about this story. Welcome, Lauren. Thank you for being on the show.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm not sure the right emotion to use about this. Encouraged. I am encouraged about the news, mostly because I feel like this will lead to a fair outcome for the parents of these two girls.
So the case we're talking about tonight is the Delphi murder case that Lauren has been really championing heathens. So for those of us that don't know, what are the basic facts of the case?
So the basic facts of the case are that two young girls were killed on February 13th, 2017 in Delphi, Indiana. That was essentially a very, I don't want a cold case, but there were not a lot of leads or information until about 2 years ago when Richard Allen was arrested. Allen, they had a lot of evidence to tie Allen, and if you're interested, I'm going to point you guys to the Murder Sheet podcast. They've been our guests, and they have a lot of more in-depth information. I don't want to go in-depth about this, but if you would like to look into that, Allen was arrested for this, and they have a lot more in-depth about the evidence, and this trial has been and I'm quoting several legal experts here when I call it a circus, because it really has been a three-ring circus.
Okay. How did the defense describe Odinism? I know that they used Odinism as a way to sort of get Richard Allen off from these charges. So what did they say? How did they describe it?
Well, one thing is they didn't call it Odinism. They call it Odinite. Okay. And they seem to think that Odinism and heathenry are all the same thing, and also a whole lot of conflating it with ceremonial magic. And it was basically just a catch-all for a big bad guy who does spooky rituals in the woods.
Okay.
They brought Odinism in a filing in a memorandum last year in September, where they claimed there was a conspiracy by a group of men who identify as Asatru who live in that area, one of whom had a tenuous connection to one of the girls who were murdered. Once again, if you really want to dig into this, go ahead. I don't want to give that information out right now because I don't want to name these men. They don't deserve it. And if I give more out, that's just going to tie you to these people. Right. And as well as to prison guards who are inclusive heathens, to the best of my understanding from communication with them by people that I am friends with. They basically tried to very strongly tie any stick that was laying on top of the other as a rune. And what happened, where this came from, is this area does have a very high racist heathen population, this area of Indiana. It is a stronghold for several racist groups. I'm not going to give them the air of their name. They know who they are. And as well as a biker gang with Norse flavors. So when they initially were investigating this, one of the avenues they went down was, could this be related to this gang or Odinism? And The FBI expert they brought in after doing some interviews, they couldn't tie any of these people to that city at the time the murders happened. So basically the FBI is like, yeah, this has no religious ties. This is just a murder. And the Allen's defense team, however, came up with this vast conspiracy of how this was all ritualistic killings, and they tried to tie it to tarot, and I mean, it was a lot.
Okay.
And so that's where I kind of came in, and that's where I got involved, because we found out about this, and Piper helped me tremendously. We were able to reach out, get ourselves booked on several shows that were covering this, and really start to inform them about what Odinism is, because one of the interesting things I discovered, especially on Court TV, was people not understanding what polytheism is. They assume if you worship Odin, you're an Odinist or an Odinite.
Right.
And so I've had to do a lot of polytheism 101 explanations, but this has been right at a year that we have had this Odinite defense out. There have been a lot of back and forth. We as an organization were contacted by the defense at one point. They brought in a expert to try to testify on behalf of this, and the expert's decision was essentially, well, it's a ritual killing because I said so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Trust me, bro.
Yeah. She had no expertise in any of it. Norse mythology, paganism. She was just some lady who says she knows about ritual killings.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah. So you can imagine this was a lot. So, so it was, we've all been kind of waiting until this week to hear what exactly the judge was going to rule, because this case does go to court next month.
So yes, the judge ruled that he couldn't use this as a defense.
Okay, so Judge Gull ruled that Allen's defense team did not produce admissible evidence that linked Odinism or specifics or This is a lot of S's in a row. I'm sorry.
Yeah, totally.
Specific suspected Odinists to the killings.
Okay.
Now,
excellent.
I having followed up, with my legal expert, to quote exactly from the order, the court will not permit the evidence submitted by the defense in support of their arguments regarding a third-party perpetrators, that would be the Odinists, in the trial of this cause, as the probative value of such evidence greatly outweighed by confusion of the issues and its potential to mislead the jury.
Go ahead.
Now, he didn't close the door completely. The court will allow Allen's attorneys to argue during the trial why the evidence should be admitted. These are called offers of proof and are done outside the presence of jurors. What these are specifically for appeal. So he will allow them to argue each witness or each argument in their Odinist case during the trial, but it will be outside purview of the jury, and this is solely to put them on the record for appeal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Why is the judge ruling so important to us as heathens? Why is that ruling important to us?
I think it's important for a lot of reasons. One, I did want to add one more quick thing about this.
Sure, go ahead.
Because this is tied to the Odinism. He did rule, however, that Richard Allen's many confessions, which were part of the Odinist defense, was he claimed that the Odinists in the prisons were forcing him to confess, that it was a gang conspiracy by prison guards and prisoners and all of this to force him to confess. So the judge did rule that they weren't forced, essentially that these confessions could be admitted in court.
Okay.
This is really important for a number of reasons. One, I don't know how many people watching right now were alive during the Satanic Panic in the 80s. 90s.
I was. Yes.
I was. But there was a lot of weird legal precedents set during that time that had to be overturned regarding things like repressed memories, satanic ritual. There were all of these things that were completely unfounded that the courts had to go back and overturn. So this could have potentially set some sort of precedent on Odinism, on heathens, on our religious symbols. This could have hurt people who work with prisoners, not just prison guards, psychiatrists, chaplains. This could have hurt our InReach program and our reach to prisons. This could have really hurt the rights of heathen prisoners to worship. This could also hurt, like I said, anyone who works in prisons, who volunteers. And also, this was an international story. It was talked about by big name people that your parents recognize. I was getting emails and contacts from people all over the world about this. It was making, I remember I was talking about it to some of my friends in Europe, and it was making the news in Europe.
Yeah. It was a big deal.
It is, and it still is a big deal. And so I'm really hopeful that removing this very confusing, illogical defense will make for a fair trial, because throughout all this, I think that's kind of been the thing. We've got to remember that two young women, they were 12 and 13, really kind of just were murdered, brutally murdered. Right. And I think that's the important thing that we have to remember, because that's the crux of this. Yeah. So as heathens, we kind of stand with the family, we stand with a fair trial, and we also stand with prisoners who had a lot to lose, because we do have, our prison InReach program, we're in contact. We have things with about 125 jails and prisons across the country. And this could have hurt a lot of people. It could have ended up in a situation like I was in 20 years ago at work, where I got called into HR. I was wearing a Mjolnir. My coworker, her brother's a prison guard. So she assumed I was some sort of Odinist racist, and right. Fortunately, because I'm a Troth member, I was able to go, this is who we are. This is what we do. I just happened to have a copy of the second edition of our Troth with me.
Oh, nice.
I was editing it for Ben. Oh. And so I had one of the print copies. And so it's really important. And I think that this is I know when I heard from our friends at the Murder Sheet, as soon as they got it, Anya emailed me just immediately. And I told you guys, I told the board what was going on, because we've all been kind of tense about it. Yeah. But I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to all of the wonderful podcasters, bloggers, TV stations that were open to letting us talk about the differences, and let me give a little history lesson about Odinism. Yeah. And I will keep following this. Like I said, this will go to appeals. There is a chance that there's a strong chance that this defense will get thrown into appeal as well. So, but it will not become the center of this case. And quite frankly, appeals are not something that people watch unless you're like a hardcore court person like I am. Right. So, right. But we will keep an eye on it. And tomorrow I'm heading over to Decarcerate, Arkansas, to deal with more prison reform stuff. So it's a good week. It's a good week for heathenry.
It is. Thank you so much this is a major win for heathenry. And
it's a major win, and it's also a major for Libby and Abby's families. Yes, let's not forget that. The important thing is it is a major win for Libby and Abby's families.
Very much so.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much, Piper. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Lauren. And thank you so much for dispelling misconceptions people have about who we are and what we do. And also thank you for using all the scholarship that the Troth has put together over the decades for this case. And yes, ultimately, we want justice for these young women.
I want to thank everyone who watched when I was on Court TV or on whatever, who listened to the podcast, who showed these people that we're a force and you want to listen to us, and that got them to invite us back because they saw the audience, they saw the response. So I also do want to especially thank our members and everyone else for doing that for us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Happy to do so. Y'all have a great evening.
You too. All right. Hello. Now, our main story tonight is about a Troth program that touches members. Hold on, excuse me. Technical difficulties, i.e., user difficulty. There we go. Our main story tonight is about a Troth program that touches members and non-members alike. Our Heathen Essential program is the entry program to our clergy and esoteric study tracks. It is free. It is based on decades of both experiential and academic work, and its facilitator is Crystal Radcliffe. Good evening, Crystal. Thanks for being on the show.
Hello.
What do people learn in the Heathen's Essentials program?
Well, what the Heathenry Essentials program is the first module of the lore program, and it's the entering into the lore program, which is what gets you into everything else that the Trove has to offer, like especially if you want to go into the clergy program. The other benefit of the Heathenry Essentials is if you just want to understand what heathenry is, the Heathenry Essentials is the program that will answer what is heathenry. One of the things about the Heathenry Essentials program, does not have to be a member of the Troth to take the Heathenry Essentials program. It's a self-study program. It's available on the Troth website, which is down in the corner. Mm-hmm. And you can go to the website and get the entire program right off the website. The only cost is buying the books for it. And you can do the self-study. If you wish to apply the program and get into the lore program and maybe go into the clergy program, you do have to be a member with a year and a day at this point in time. And once you've done the self-study program, Tom DeMaio you write to the lore program at thetroth.org. And if you've been a member for a year and a day, you can take the test and then you can get into the lore program, which also is self-study, and work your way through the different lore programs. And once you've completed certain parts of the lore program, you can apply to the clergy program. There's different aspects to the lore program, but you have to be a member. We don't charge for the classes, but you pay for your books.
Right.
We aren't the religion of the book. We're the religion of the library.
Nice. I like that very much.
But the thing is, the Heathenry Essentials program, it started out when I first joined the Troth with another friend of mine. It was during COVID, and I said, let's study the Heathenry Essentials, and they were in the process of changing the website. Mm-hmm. So at any time the website could go down. So I extracted the information off the website, and my friend and I were going to have a little study thing, but being COVID, we couldn't get together. So we were going to do it via Zoom. And I said, well, let's see if anybody else is interested in joining our little study group. And it blew up in my face.
That is not the response that we've gotten from students. But yes,
well, I was thinking
maybe very popular.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like 3 or 4 people, and we had 50 or 60 people. Oh, me. Right. And that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we started out with 2 Saturday mornings, and I've just added a Monday night. 2
Okay.
Monday nights. But first it was going to be, let's study this, and next, have it structured. But too many people couldn't keep up with the schedule because they were dropping out of it because I can't keep up with your reading schedule.
Right.
So now what it is whoever shows up, we discuss what the people want to discuss who show up. It's not a scheduled class that you join to be, per schedule. It's, hey, I'm reading chapter, module 4, and we want to talk about that.
Okay.
The other thing is people who just may want to have questions. If they want to, somebody's, my kid's into this heathery stuff. What are you? They're welcome.
Awesome.
And then there's a lot of people who are either in a heathenry desert, they're either surrounded by people who are not heathen or who are white supremacists or whatever, and they just want to talk to real other heathens. And after we've done the study aspect, and if we're getting into real concepts, I record it.
Right.
And when I get my ducks in a row, I'll be posting them on the internet for other students to be able to watch what we've already talked about. I haven't got that. Those ducks are still being squirrels in the backyard.
As is the style of ducks. Yes.
Yeah. They're not ducks. They're squirrels, and they're at a rave. And sometimes, nobody has any, it's just kind of a free-for-all, and there's not really any significant conversation. But after the conversation and the discussions, then it turns into a coffee clutch, and it goes until people, thank you, Yulfric. Then it just turns into a coffee clutch until people decide they have something else better to do. And then some people just have a need. I got to talk to somebody that, is a heathen. And I've had some of them go 7 hours. That's why some people say, how long does it last? It's assigned about an hour and a half for the study group, unless it has to go longer. And then it turns into a social study, just talking, and then people go, well, I got to go walk the dog, got to go pick up my kids. And then sometimes it conflicts with, back to school, and nobody shows up.
Yeah.
Well,
and the thing is, there are a lot of really positive comments about what you have created. Okay. There are people that took the study class by themselves and were sort of saddened that they didn't get to be part of the social thing that you've also created, right? So you're building community over the internet, which is an amazing thing. What do you think is the most difficult part of the program for people?
Well, for some people, it's, getting the books. For other people, it's, finding time to read. For some people, it's, they're isolated. They don't have anybody to talk or share with. I don't, my opinion is, there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's a lot of judgmental, you're doing it wrong kind of thing. And I don't have that opinion in the Heathenry Essentials. The thing about the heathenry is, the people in, that were the farmers down in the farm, and then you got the people out that were, fishing, and then people in the mountains, they all did stuff different, and people, could be in a, one farmland and 10 miles away do something entirely different, so there is not a wrong way to do things. It's what works for you. And, hanging up on way somebody did something 1,000 years ago, it's you base it and then you see what works.
That's fantastic.
So,
what do you think would make the program better?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. What?
I'm sorry. What do you think would make the program better?
I'm not quite sure. I'm always, I've been changing and modifying it over the 3 years. I try things that, and see what works, and people have ideas. And if it works, and if it doesn't, we don't do it anymore. I have, some things have settled down in my life, so I can, I've gotten out from underneath my brain fog from COVID. So now I'm getting more active on the social media. And so I get active in different Facebook groups, and I contact the admins of those Facebook groups and ask permission. And when I get it, then I post it to the Facebook groups that we're having this thing. And so I'm getting more people who are interested in heathenry, and they're coming in to the I see it as an outreach for the Troth, but volunteer, just spread the word for it. There isn't much like that, tasks or anything, except for letting, people know about it. But there's a way to do it in social media where you're not spamming.
Mhm.
I was working before COVID to be a social media marketer. And there's etiquette about, posting in other people's groups,
Right.
You don't drop links without permission of the admin. You say, and one of the things I stress is I'm not selling a course. I'm not selling rune readings. I'm not making money on this. It's an educational, we're not selling, we're not trying to, we're selling heathenry information. It's a free course. It's a self-study. People don't have to be a member of the Troth to take the course. They don't have to become a member of the Troth. It's not a switch and bait deal. And
It is
go
information
ahead.
we are putting out there for free,
Right.
based on all of our work, and it is something that we are sharing with the community rather than it's bait and switch. So
Right.
as
Right.
far as joining, yeah.
And I always approach the admin before posting, and then, I do give quality information when I do post into the group. I don't do it like come into the group and then want to post. I interact in the group and then ask to post.
Well, you're building reputation, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And I want to just point out to the audience here what kind of reputation Crystal's class has made. We have several people. One person said before Crystal got the Heathen Essentials chats up and running, I did the program mostly alone. I am deeply grateful that she has developed this mentoring support program for those doing it now. And we have another person that said, I'm really grateful for this program. It's led me to the useful literature, which I'm reading now. And I've also used the document with a list of questions for the self-study. And the Zoom calls are helpful and interesting, right? And there's no time limit on this course, by the way. There's no, you don't have to be done in a year. You don't have to be done. It's whenever you can do that. So that's really important for people to remember. This is something that we hope will help you both build community with other heathens, and will also help you learn what community building, inclusive heathenry means. Right?
And one of the things I do use it for is like, I reach out to, because now in some of the social media places, they say, witches, pagans, and heathens. And, I've been in the pagan witch community for 40 years.
Right.
I have a pagan, I date back to the burning times and when I used to get shot at. And
right.
I have another name that people. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another name that some people will recognize going back to before the internet. and I will use that name. And I sometimes will use Crystal / Serona because they recognize Serona dating back to before the internet.
Right.
And but so I'm using that name because they go, oh yeah, I know her. I met her back in '82.
Right. Well, and it does help too that you have decades in the community, and you have decades volunteering for the Trove. And I mean hardcore volunteering for the Trove. This is not necessarily easy. So I really appreciate what you're doing with Heathen Essentials. Is there anything you'd like to add before we? Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add in the next couple minutes?
Well, the thing is, you don't have to be in the program to drop by and say hi in the Zoom calls.
Oh, that's important too.
That's what what I try to say is you don't have to be in the taking the Essentials program. We're also you could be in any of the programs or not doing any of them, but if you have a question, drop by. We don't always, because if you have a question, I don't tell you. If you say, what about this, and I go, well, hell, I don't know. I will resource it and then come back. We have a Facebook group. We have a section on the server. But in the Facebook group, we have not one, but 3 chats that people can chat about stuff. We have a Facebook group and, which has a running chat thing. And I will find somebody who has the answer. And I'm in contact with a lot of the people who write the books.
Right.
We had one person, about a year ago, we had somebody ask something about, I have a slight stroke in the speech area of my brain. So I have a problem sometimes with words, but Himanya, and we couldn't figure out the answer to that question for God nor money. And so I ended up having Lauren come in and give a little presentation.
Oh, fantastic.
And that's one of the ones I'm going to specifically make sure that I get posted because, I couldn't repeat that, the wonderful presentation she did.
Right.
And, but, the wonderful thing is, and this is from my long time of being a teacher in, esoterica, is sometimes, you get taught and you're doing the same thing, for 40 years and the student goes, what about? And you go, God, I never thought of that, and that's part of what I enjoy about it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you, Crystal. Our Heathen Essentials program, again, is free. It's based in decades of academic and experiential wisdom, and it is open to anyone who is interested.
Anybody can drop by, and if you're if you're a heathen and you're sitting out in the middle of BF nowhere, drop by and just chat to other people.
Yeah.
By the way, it's this weekend, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Ignore that 4 o'clock because that's coming out of England. That's
I understand. Yeah. Well, thank you, Crystal, for being on the show, and have a lovely evening. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay. Hello. All right. And the last part of our show tonight. So we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. What did you hear that sounded interesting? What did you hear that you might want clarification on? Or what's on your heart? What are you thinking about inclusive community building heathenry this evening? Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Anyone? Okay. not seeing any questions. One of the things we're going to be covering in September is all of the different ways in which the Troth reaches out into the world and tries to build community. Tonight we had the Heathen Essentials. We're going to be talking about the lore program. We're also going to be talking about the clergy program and our new esoteric practitioner program at some point this year. We have a lovely, a lovely program run by people who are very interested in making the world a better place. And that becomes super important. Crystal points out this Saturday is the next meeting for Heathen Essentials. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It's super cool. And it's one of the it's one of the most important things that we do. Well, if there are no questions from the audience, we're going to close down this stream. And thank you all so much for showing up and being in attendance. And we'll see you next week when we'll be talking about Harvest Home with Reverend Tim Adams. Harvest Home is one of the sort of overarching harvest festival tides because it's more than one day usually. It has like a starting event and an ending event, which is one of the coolest ways to, like, when I was a heathen outside of the Troth, figuring time on the calendar was one day, right? No, I've been opened up to a whole nother calendar of so many days. Like winter nights last so many days, and Yule lasts so many days, and it's one of the most fun things about heathenry. So yes, next week we'll be talking to Reverend Tim Adams about Harvest Home and why we celebrate it. We're also going to be talking to Tom DeMaio about the lore program sometime this month. October is we're going to be talking about death and dying. We're going to have our death doula come talk to us about what paperwork you should have. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next week on All Things Considered. Positive waves for having a fantastic weekend.